Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video talking to you about the suppressor here on the front of my very loose Mark 18 clone, my Midwest Industries 10.5 pistol. This is the Yankee Hill machine, or YHM Turbo K. Now it is worth mentioning this is the older style of Turbo K. They do have an updated style, which I've actually had a chance to play with a little bit. We'll talk about the differences there later on in the video, but this here again is a Turbo K, and what is probably one of my favorite, at least, 5.56 cans on the market. So instead of taking some time to list off verbally all the specs on this can, I'm going to take this side of the screen to list out some of the broader specifications. Now you can get that from any product page for these, whether that be through places like Silencer Shop, where I got this one, YHM's website. There's a bunch of different sources for that. So you can pause the video back there if you wanted to, or again, just check out one of those websites to get the full details and then some. But basically, suffice to say, as the K part of the Turbo K would imply, this is a short can, K for Kurs. I don't speak German, but as I understand it, that is short. And so they do have obviously a longer version of this as well, just known as the regular Turbo. So why did I choose this specific can as really my first one that I am privately owning as a regular civilian, not just one sent to me to review by Silencer Shop? So first of all, I wanted to pick a 5.56 can, a dedicated 5.56 can, partially because I wanted to have a gun that's just set up all the time exactly the way I need it, and not have a can that's going to be jumping from one gun to another all the time. I wanted it to be able to stick to the gun that it should be on all the time, so I don't have to worry about where it is when I need it. And I figured by going with a dedicated 5.56 can, that's going to increase the likelihood of that being the case. So that's one of the reasons. The other reason is I've shot a lot of 30 caliber suppressors on 5.56 guns, and while they work, they're definitely rated for it, there's usually a lot of negative aspects that come with doing that. There are some exceptions, but generally speaking, there can be some drawbacks. So first of all, when you go to a 30 cal can, you're usually dealing with excess weight. You're dealing with excess cost because of that higher pressure rating and a little bit more versatility. And then you're also gaining things like excessive back pressure and extra gas in the face as a result of that. When you go to a dedicated 5.56 can, you lose a lot of those drawbacks. The biggest drawback of the dedicated 5.56 can being you can't then run it on a bunch of other calibers. So that's definitely a thought equation that we'll go over more towards the end of the video, but just to explain why I went with a dedicated 5.56 can as my first personally owned suppressor. Now, as far as why I chose the Turbo K specifically versus some of the other ones on the market, so first of all is cost. These things are extremely affordable. Now, MSRP is going to be a little bit higher, but street price, like what you can actually expect to pay, again, through places like Silencer Shop, at least for this one, when I got it, was right around like 350 bucks, which is extremely reasonable for a rifle rated suppressor. And it is full auto rated and all that stuff. So when we're talking like with your tax stamp and everything else under $600, it was just, a little bit of a too good of a deal for me to pass up. Now add to that the very exceptional YHM QD system where all the moving parts are on the muzzle device, so there's nothing to wear out really on the suppressor body, which is becoming an increasing issue for guys who are running AAC suppressors, for example, since Remington is not really a thing right now. So all the wear items are not on the suppressor, which is a really good thing. And then I'd seen a couple reviews of the Turbo K, all of which were extremely positive. Some claiming that it is hearing safe on a 10.5 AR, and kind of everything combined there. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead, take the chance, buy one for myself and run it, and I'm very glad that I did. So since I touched on it, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the attachment methods here. Now it comes with two different methods of attachment. You can either direct thread it, so it has just a flat cap on the base of this thing, so you can direct thread it. That's going to take about 1 inch of the overall length off, should you choose to do it that way. You can also run it with the QD system that is included. So it comes with a 3-chamber muzzle brake that you can put onto your gun, and then this just ratchets onto that. A very secure ratcheting system. Again, all the moving parts on the muzzle device, so there's nothing to wear out on the can side of things. And then I've never had that ratchet mechanism come loose ever through well over 1,000 rounds through this can now. Never once have I had that ratchet system come loose. Now, where that ratcheting adapter threads onto the can, I have had that just very slightly come loose before. I tend to check it fairly often as long as I don't burn myself, which I have melted a glove to this suppressor, as you might be able to tell from some of the footage. But not too much of a worry, and if you are worried about it, you can definitely put a little bit of thread locker on there. I didn't do that just because I wanted to test it back and forth, and we'll kind of touch on possible perceived differences between using a QD and doing the direct thread, but you have those options. Now, on top of that, you do have a very, or becoming more universal thread pitch on the suppressor body itself. So if you don't want to use YHM's QD system, it is compatible with a lot of other QD systems on the market, or you can even get something like a JMac Customs muzzle brake. So if you're running a 5.45 AK, you can get one of their muzzle brakes, very similar to the one I just did a review on, and thread this thing straight on there, and it'll work great with your 5.45 guns, assuming everything is nice and concentric. So you're not just stuck to the YHM stuff because of that more universal thread pitch on the body of the suppressor. The sky's really the limit. That being said, I'm very happy again with the YHM system of attachment, and I don't really plan on changing out anything anytime soon. And they do have a KERS kit where basically, even with having the QD system, you're dropping that overall length back down to where the threads begin, so you can still chop off that extra inch of length even running the QD system. So that might be another neat option for those of you where length is kind of your #1 consideration. Now, obviously, talking about a suppressor, you guys are wanting to know how does it suppress. Now, we don't have the numbers for you. Again, there are resources for that should you want to know what the explicit numbers are and ratings are from barrel lengths and calibers and pressures and everything else. I can just tell you subjectively what the experience was like, because even in the video, you're not going to get a true representation of sound through the camera or through your computer screen or cell phone that you are going to get in person. Now, I've shot it on 5.56 on both a 10.5 inch barrel. I did a little bit on a 10.25 inch barrel, which is a little bit shorter than it's rated for, and then a 16 inch barrel quite a bit. And then I've also run this on a 5.7 upper from CMMG, all of which it ran very well on, with the exception of that 10.25 inch, which we'll touch on here in a second. So like I said, I've heard claims out there that this thing is hearing safe on a 10.5-inch barrel like this one. I can say for the size of this thing, this is probably the best performing 5.56 can I've ever seen or been around or used. It outperforms a lot of cans that are more expensive and bigger than this one. Again, just my subjective experience. On the 16-inch barrel, so for example, I ran it through a precision rifle class with Spartan Training Concepts up out of Hillsboro, Oregon. And on my 16-inch rifle, shooting outdoors, I could comfortably shoot an entire course of fire without hearing protection and be just fine. Again, shooting outdoors. With a 10.5-inch barrel, it can be done, but that level of discomfort starts rising a lot quicker, to the point where I just didn't shoot it without hearing protection with the 10.5. With the 16, I still typically shot with hearing protection, even if it wasn't totally necessary, but you got to protect what hearing you have. I would recommend still wearing hearing protection on a gun this short. If you had to in a pinch, you could definitely do it and not have your ears bleed. So indoors for a home defense gun, that is definitely an option. But I don't know if I would say it's necessarily hearing safe on a 10.5, but it's pretty dang close. And again, for the size and especially the price of the suppressor, better than anything else that I've used as far as that goes. Now, again, on the 5.7, ran just fine. I didn't run this thing on a 22 just because it's not really recommended for a not end-user serviceable can, i.e. one you can't take apart and clean, to run it on a rimfire. So I didn't do that, but on the 5.56 and the 5.7, ran totally fine. Very, very effective. And one of the other things that I noticed, which is probably one of the biggest pros for this that I don't really see discussed a lot, is the zero shift, whether you're running with or without your can. Now, I've tested this several times with both this and my 16-inch Midwest Industries rifle. There is, and I want to make sure I look in the camera so you understand what I'm saying here. With the two guns that I've tested it on, there is no appreciable point of impact shift, whether I'm running it just with the muzzle brake or flash hider, or when I ratchet the suppressor on. I can't tell the difference. The group size is within the margin of error for that ammo that I'm testing with it. So if I'm shooting 1.5-inch groups with the suppressor, I take it off. I'm shooting within that same 1.5-inch group, at least at 100 yards. If I were to do the testing at 300-400 yards, I might notice a little bit more of a shift. But at 100 yards, I see no appreciable point of impact shift. Now, I can't say that that's guaranteed for you, but when I was at SHOT Show talking with YHM, I brought up that fact that I'd seen little to no point of impact shift, or in my case, no point of impact shift. And they said that it actually worked really hard to make sure that things engage correctly to make that repeatability as prevalent as they can. Again, I don't know exactly what went into making that happen, but I can just say for me, whether I'm running the can or not, on my 16-inch and my 10.5-inch barrel here, no appreciable point of impact shift whatsoever, and that is extremely impressive and one of the big benefits, I think, of this can. So let's talk about negatives. So when we're talking about negatives, the first thing I'm going to talk about is the back pressure. Now, honestly, this is going to be something that is going to go along with any like traditional style suppressor, i.e. a non-flow through suppressor. You do get a little bit more back pressure through this. Now, in every gun that I've used it on, I can do it without having to dial down gas or anything like that and have it operate just fine. So whether I'm doing it on this or again my 16-inch, everything works fine. With the 5.7, everything works just fine. Where I have run into an issue is on my Beretta ARX 100, which is a piston-driven gun, It ran fine when it was in its 16-inch configuration, but after I SBR'd that gun and ran it down to the 10.25-inch version, I had issues with it wanting to correctly cycle. Now, the downside of that gun is while it does have an adjustable gas piston, there is no suppressor setting. So you can either just do adverse or normal. So it is getting excessive gas pressure with the suppressor on that gun. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I can do with that because there's not really aftermarket support for that gun. But just so you're aware there, in comparison to a flow through, you're definitely going to get back pressure. Compared to a 30 cal can on a 5.56, significantly less back pressure with this one compared to almost every single 30 cal can I've tried. So that is just something though to be aware of. If you're running a piston gun where you don't have a suppressor setting, you might run into issues, but it's going to be that way with any traditional 5.56 suppressor in my experience. Now, the only other drawback that I've run into with this thing is the flash. Now, on the 16-inch, it's not that big of a deal, but with the 10.5-inch, I definitely do get noticeable flash coming out of the front of this suppressor. Now, that does somewhat depend on the ammo I'm shooting. If I'm shooting hot NATO spec ammo, I get a lot more flash than if I'm just running commercial spec like 223, like PMC bronze. But if I'm running most ammos, I'm gonna get quite a bit of flash out the front of this. Now, on a 10.5-inch barrel, that's to be expected. However, this is something that they addressed. Like I said earlier, they have a version 2 of the suppressor now, and they actually changed the end cap design to enhance the flash suppression abilities, which if you're like me and getting into night vision, that becomes more and more of a consideration that you want to kind of weigh in your decision-making process. They did also add slightly different wrench flats or wrench slots, I guess, on the body of the suppressor, so you can more easily get tools on and off these things. But again, there is quite a bit of flash with this one, less so with the new version. Again, I've shot side by side with the new one because a couple of my coworkers, basically I'll say, after I bought this one, 2 of my coworkers decided they were going to get Turbo Ks. They both got the new version because the new version came out while this was still in jail. But having a chance to shoot them side by side, the new version definitely has decreased flash compared to this one. So take that for what it is. So all in all, I am extremely happy with my purchase on this. When it comes to NFA items, especially suppressors where you're having to wait 6 to 9 months typically, it's a kind of a nerve-wracking experience buying a suppressor that you don't have personal experience with. I did watch a lot of reviews, but you don't truly know until you get it in hand, and I have to say I do not at all regret getting this suppressor, and I actively encourage other people looking for 5.56 suppressors to get this one. At the cost, you're not going to beat it, hands down. Even at twice the cost, there's a lot of suppressors on the market that don't give you the benefits that you get with this one, whether that be attachment methods, whether that be the actual sound suppression, or just how it runs on a gun. This thing is a very, very good suppressor to the point where I'm pretty much now bought into YHM. I have so much confidence in their suppressors after my experience with this one that well, I've already bought my second one. Let me just grab that one because it's a pretty cool one. So this is the newest addition to the family, kind of. Technically it still is in jail, but since I work for the SOT where it's in jail at, I get to take it out and basically demo it. So this is the YHM R9. Now, if you saw the video I did at SHOT Show with the YHM, you might know a little bit about this, and this actually has some of those features integrated in the newer Turbo Ks. But this is a 9mm suppressor that is not only rated for 9mm, you can run 300 blackout, subsonic, and supersonic, 5.56 supersonic. You can even run all the way up to 308 as long as you have a long enough barrel for this. So a really, really impressive can. When I first was talking to them about this at SHOT Show, I immediately knew that I had to get one, and obviously I have it on my MP5K right now because why wouldn't I? Attachment methods are still in the works for these. You can run it off whatever muzzle brakes you have if you get the QD system, but they are working on a tri-lug system, which is just going to work better for this thing, as well as the Nielsen device, so you can run it on handguns as well. So just to say, I'm a big fan of YHM to the point where I'm purchasing more, and when a Resonator K becomes available, I'll probably be getting one of those as well.
Safe. Down. All right, off the tripod. Tripod? Yep. See that hole in the car? Yep. Move it to the wood.
So if you're looking for a 5.56 suppressor and you're on a budget, or you just want to get the best bang for your buck, I do genuinely believe that the Turbo K is an exceptionally good choice. Again, I paid my own money for this. I didn't go through YHM for that. I went through Silencer Shop to get this one, and I could not be happier. I'm a big fan. Again, after using mine, 2 of my coworkers also bought one, and every single person I've talked to that has one is in love with theirs. Again, the only thing I wish is if I could get the different end cap to do the better flash suppression with this one, especially for shooting at night. But I'm still very happy with this thing. It's not like it blooms out my PVS 14 or anything crazy like that. So very happy with this. So again, if you're looking for one, definitely check it out. If you're gonna be looking for suppressors, I definitely recommend going through Silencer Shop. They make that process as easy as possible. Full disclosure, they do pay me to do reviews, so I do work for Silencer Shop on the review side of things. I don't work in their sales or anything like that. I've been saying all this stuff since before I was ever involved with Silencer Shop. They really do make it as easy as possible, and their prices are about the best that you can find out there, and their availability is very good as well. But the YHM stuff is out of stock very often, so you're probably going to want to set up email notifications, which they allow you to do. And if you do see one in stock, definitely grab it, because it will not be in stock very long. So if you have any experience yourselves with the YHM suppressors, definitely let me know, especially if you have experience with the Turbo K, just so other people watching this video can get an idea of what they can expect with this can. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely throw those in the comment section down below. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. Definitely be on the lookout for more content involving the R9, because that thing is going to be getting a lot of use through me. But anyway, with all that being said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.